Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm here talking about this Arrow episodes, Shifting Allegiances, and docket number, let's take a look one more time, 11, 19, 41, 73. Okay, so these are really good episodes, and I do think they're doing a nice job of moving us towards our big season finale. But they continue to show one really big flaw with this series, this season. And namely, this flaw is why in the world is Black Siren so afraid of Diaz? Diaz is just a non-powered dude who, we recently saw when he was dealing with the Quadrant guys, almost got himself killed by some random nameless thug whipping out a gun and shooting him. He's only dead because he had the sense to wear a good bulletproof vest, and two, the guy didn't make sure to shoot him in the head. In other words, he's alive because of luck. And yet, Black Siren is scared to death of this guy. And she seems more afraid of him than she did Zoom, a superpowered speedster guy who killed God only knows how many people and had a fairly decent plan for destroying the multiverse. And let's keep in mind, Zoom not only scared the hell out of Black Siren, but, a multitude of other Earth 2 supervillains like King Shark and Dr. Light. So, yeah, Diaz is, as people have said, he's a thug. No powers, apparently a pretty smart guy, but again, nothing. So I've been thinking, like, why in the name of God does it take until this episode, the court episode, for Siren to finally, like, just blast the dude with her sonic scream? And today it finally kind of hit me what it might be. And it's not really Diaz that she's scared of. I mean, granted, her watching him set a guy on fire didn't help. But what I think is really going on here, and I don't normally do theory crafting, but this is an idea that just hit me and I just have to share it to you, is that it's not really Diaz she's scared of. This is lingering fear of Zoom. That coldness, that sheer indifference to anyone's life, and the willingness to just kill anybody who crosses them in the slightest way. The sheer soullessness of it all. I mean, she does sort of vaguely reference Diaz in a way being even more dead inside than Zoom. And in a way, she kind of might have a little bit of a point. Diaz is, for the most part, extremely dispassionate, which is not really a term you can apply to Zoom. I mean, Zoom was straight up seriously crazy, but he was never really big on that self-restraint. Deception, yes, but self-restraint, not really. And when he was really worked up, you could tell. Diaz mostly keeps it under wraps and then has these explosive outbursts. Zoom worked a little bit differently, but they're similar enough that I think Laurel sees that in a lot of ways Diaz is a lot like Zoom would be like if he just never had powers. Not 100% the same, but similar. Similar enough that this specter of Zoom, someone who completely, even she was completely and utterly terrified of, Diaz unknowingly is able to kind of latch onto that. He can see what kind of buttons to push with her to kind of get the same sort of response that Zoom would have gotten from her. So it's really more psychology and being able to read people that's working in Diaz's favor here. I mean, Zoom is the kind of guy that can haunt the nightmares of somebody like Black Siren, who's a superpowered mass murderer who, until recently was pretty much an unrepentant, superpowered mass murderer. So, that's pretty damn bad. When you can scare somebody like that, you are one frightening SOB. So, anyway, that's what I think is going on here. There's enough of Zoom in Diaz to kind of push Black Siren's buttons, and Diaz has noticed this and knows how to play on that fear to get somebody who should quite easily be able to turn him into paste on his side and under his boot. Now, granted, we do see that Diaz did have some sort of a ace in the hole in case Black Siren did turn against him, but he even says, okay, I need to get this gadget out of my pocket in order to be able to use it effectively against her. In other words, if she bushwhacks him, like she did this episode, and doesn't have to stop and deal with a bunch of his goons, then she would have had a pretty good chance of killing him. Now, granted, Diaz usually has plenty of goons floating around nearby, and but then again, it does make sense that he would also have some sort of a precaution to deal with Siren if she should turn against him. So, Anyway, this episode, okay, I'm glad that that was at least dealt with. But I think if they had actually explicitly explained to us why she was so afraid of Diaz and sort of tapped into this lingering fear of Zoom that she almost certainly would have, this season would have worked a lot better up until this point. Anyway, Diaz, in the early episode, I kind of like that's what's going on here with Quentin, where the whole situation with him getting Black Siren to get Quentin to sign that paper, he's like, yeah, like having your signature on this paper, that's meaningless. I just wanted to make sure that I could make you knuckle under to me. Which, again, just kind of goes to show you. But the thing that with Diaz is, okay, that with Quentin, like finding a way to get him to knuckle under. Okay, that's pretty smart. Having some kind of a gadget on him that he can use in case Black Siren turns against him. Also smart. But the whole thing with the court case where he doesn't believe the judge doesn't make sense to me because it had been previously said that Diaz got his hands on Christopher Chance's CIA file. That means that Diaz knew of the existence of Christopher Chance. And the whole thing of like, oh, that was Christopher Chance, the human target, pretending to be Tommy Merlin to stir up doubt. And yet, for some reason, he doesn't believe the judge with, oh, that wasn't me. Somebody took my place and impersonated me, even though he knows that just hours ago, there was an extremely talented impersonator in Star City who is allied with Oliver Queen. What in the holy hell? That makes no sense at all. None. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, people. Am I missing something here? Or is this just really, really crap and stupid writing? Now, anyway, the whole thing with using Human Target to impersonate Tommy and sort of set him up as the established Green Arrow and thus get Oliver off the hook as long with Roy, okay, that's pretty smart. That's a good way to play it. Not that Roy should actually be able to get away with this. Yes, he would be exonerated on the charges of being the Green Arrow, but, escaping from police custody and going on the lam is still a crime, and if you commit that crime and you are later found to be innocent of the crime you were convicted of, you are still guilty of the whole escaping from jail thing, and guess what? You would get thrown back in jail. I mean, to be fair, Arrow has never been terribly strict on following, proper court procedures. Look back in the earlier seasons, I believe it was season 2, where Moira is prosecuted by her son's ex-girlfriend. I'm still mad about that. And they just sort of hand-wave that away with the DA saying, like, yeah, I don't think this is a conflict of interest, it's fine. Let this sink in. Moira was prosecuted by Laurel, her son's ex-girlfriend, someone she knew personally for years, who came over and hung out at her house God knows how many times, I mean, yeah, that is really one of my really strong sticking points with season 2 of Arrow, even after all these years. I mean, that's just so utterly egregious. It's unbelievable. Okay. So yeah, so great to see Colin back again as Tommy, especially right on the heel, not so long after him popping back up as Earth X's Prometheus and giving that just absolutely stellar performance there, giving Oliver this just hideous emotional gut punch. I mean that was great. Also, a little bit of redemption for Renee here as a character. He and John do make up, but all it really takes is for John to apologize to him. And even though Oliver has apologized to him, Renee is still super pissed at him. Though by the end of the court episode, he kind of feels like, okay, maybe it's time to bury the hatchet with Oliver because, I did perjure myself to kind of, and inadvertently, well, I perjured myself in a way that would have helped send him to prison. Now, granted, Renee did have a good reason to do that, but still. And, if you really think about it, the whole idea of everybody freaking out about Oliver going to jail is, in a lot of ways, kind of ridiculous. I mean, okay, let's say Oliver is sent to jail. Do you honestly think that, like, on the first night he's in jail, that the legends aren't going to show up and bust him out and, like, take Oliver off on the Wave Rider or something? I mean, Oliver's not just going to sit there in prison. There's nothing that can be accomplished by that. But if he works with the legends and, has all these powered people, then taking down Diaz should be a snap. But just kind of the internal rules for this say that won't happen. You can't have the Flash and the Legends or Supergirl showing up to solve Oliver's problems for him all the time. Otherwise, there's no story. Sure, it doesn't make logical sense, but it makes dramatic sense, and that's really what TV shows operate on. Although, to be perfectly honest, the idea of the Legends showing up, busting Oliver out of jail, and saying, like, yeah, well, while we figure this out, Oliver's going to come and, have cool adventures with us on the Wave Rider. That sounds like quite a lot of fun, actually. And yeah, like, Oliver on the Wave Rider, like, that sounds really badass, Although, like, hey, Oliver would have to follow Sarah's orders. And like Oliver and John Constantine, heck yeah. Oliver and Wally? Yeah, that sounds like that could be really interesting. Oliver and Mick? Oliver and Ray? Oh yeah, I'm on the time ship with my wife's ex-boyfriend. I don't know, man. I mean, this is just really just a story kind of begging to be told in my mind. But anyway, we're going to just leave that there. Anyway, guys, I think this is a good place to call it. So, as always, please comment, rate, subscribe. And, of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. And also join me on Tumblr at Jedi Reviewer. Until next time, take care and have a good one.